Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekly press conference. Today we have 5 topics. The first is to prevent the fair funding grant to the Erie Housing Authority. Second, to highlight the work of the Police Quebec Unit at the Erie Housing Authority. Third, reinforce the importance of completing the census. Fourth, announce a search for a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant that we're working on. And finally, provide an exciting LERTA update. So I'm very happy to announce that the Erie Housing Authority received a $250,000 grant to make improvement to the homes of some of their residents. The Pennsylvania Housing Affordability and Rehabilitation Enhancement Fund, or FARE for short, and that's PHARE, was established by the FARE Act 105 to provide the mechanism by which certain allocated state and federal funds, as well as funds from other sources, would be used to assist with the creation, rehabilitation, and support of affordable housing throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. To tell us more about what receiving this grant means and how the award will be used, I'm happy to introduce Mike Fraley, Executive Director of the Erie Housing Authority. Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. What I'd first like to do is thank the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. What they've done is give us a $250,000 grant to help us work on a property that we acquired about 1.5 years ago. It's called the Better Housing Properties, up around 16th and Holland to 17th over to German. We surround those properties on 3 sides. We became aware that they were going to be sold, and we wanted to acquire them, and thanks to our Board of Commissioners, we agreed that the most important thing we could do is to preserve the neighborhood up there for affordable housing. As people know, nationwide affordable housing is becoming a problem. Our mission is safe, quality affordable housing. That's even a larger problem. We are going to use this money, and again, it's $250,000 plus money from the Housing Authority's operating budget to replace windows, put in security screens, add furnaces and air conditioning, or upgrade furnaces and air conditioning, and upgrade the electrical system. Our goal is to spend the next 3 to 5 years bringing that neighborhood up to the same quality that we have in our public housing currently.
Thanks very much, Mike. We appreciate it. And I see we have Bishop Brock here. Is he still chairman of your board?
He is.
Welcome, Bishop Brock. Good to have you here as well. I know this grant award is coming at a time when these high-efficiency windows will really help the residents of the Better Housing development by reducing utility costs during the cold winter months. Since I became mayor and appointed Chief Dan Spazzarni as police chief back in 2018, we've been working to transform the police force into a diverse group that looks like the community and builds good relationships with the people that they serve. One of the major reasons I selected Chief Dan is because we both have a deep commitment to implementing community policing initiatives, such as the Police Athletic League, Unified Erie, and SPCP Council, that's Strengthening Police Community Partnerships. The Quebec Unit is a specialized unit within the Erie Police Patrol Division, overseen by Captain Tom Cavato. The unit's primary function is to patrol all areas owned and operated by the Erie Housing Authority. The Quebec Unit is a joint collaboration between the Erie Police Department and the Erie Housing Authority. And that Quebec Unit was first created in 1997, so it's been around about 23 years. It's my pleasure to announce that the Erie Housing Authority and the Erie Police Department agreed to renew the contract. Officers will continue to patrol all Erie Housing Authority residential areas in the new contract that extends the service for 2 more years to September 1st, 2022. The Housing Authority reimburses the City of Erie for the salary and benefits of the 5 officers assigned to the Quebec Unit through a federally funded grant called the Community Oriented Police and Probation Service, that's COPS for short, COPPS. To give more detail to this extension and the progress that has been made, I now invite Mike Fraley and Chief Dan Spazzarni to the podium to tell us how this new contract will benefit.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize Tom was here.
Tammy, you're part of the group too. I've been with the Housing Authority about 23 years, give or take. And when I first came to the Housing Authority, John Horan was the executive director. And at our first meeting, he said to me, he said, Mike, we have beautiful neighborhoods. We have great communities, but we still have problems. You know, together we've got to figure out a way to solve those problems. So we did a threefold plan. Number one was we wanted to make structural changes in the neighborhood. So we put in security fencing, security cameras. We put in reinforced doors and security screens, and we put in security lighting throughout all of our neighborhoods. So people could feel safe walking around at night and being in their neighborhood with their children. Secondly, we brought on-site services to the neighborhood. And those partnerships have continued to this day. We have 2 on-site YMCAs. We work with the JFK Center. We work with the Quality of Life Learning Center. We work with Early Connections. We work with GCAC. We work with MCRC. We work with Gannon University. And just recently, about 2 years ago, we began a partnership with Community Health Net to put online dental services in our neighborhoods. So we wanted to take our neighborhoods from becoming places where people live to becoming communities, to becoming their homes. Our third, and in many ways, our most important thing that we did was we tried and worked hard to install a true community policing program. We didn't want extra officers to patrol. We wanted officers to come into our neighborhood and become fabrics of our community. It started out through funding from the Drug Elimination Program to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. From there, when that funding ended, we funded it out of our own operating funds. It was important enough for us to commit every 2 years to provide these funds. The reduction in criminal activity has been amazing. When I first started at the Housing Authority, we would have 1,200 to 1,300 incidents of crime every year. We would have people standing on corners selling drugs. We would have illegal activity going on throughout our neighborhoods. We don't see that anymore. Now, on average, and for the last 5 or 6 years, we have had an average of 300 to 320 incidents of crimes throughout all of our neighborhoods. And for those of you who don't know, we serve 2,000 different houses. That partnership in the COPS program are the 6 police officers, 2 of whom we have up here right now. Our liaison with the administration, Chief Spizzarni, the Erie County Adult Probation Office, the Erie County Juvenile Probation Office, and SafeNet. SafeNet has become a very important partner because if you look at the crimes that we deal with nowadays, they are typically all people crimes, and domestic violence is the worst of those. So our officers, if you look at our incidents of crime, the majority that they deal with are domestic violence situations. They have a strong partnership with SafeNet to ensure that when a woman or a man is a victim of domestic violence, they are connected with a counselor immediately. We also began to deal with quality of life issues. So you don't see abandoned vehicles in public housing. You don't see graffiti in public housing. We have a rule with our maintenance staff. Any graffiti comes off within 24 hours. My first year of dealing with the city, with the police, with abandoned vehicles, we towed approximately 70 vehicles out of our neighborhoods. Now it's unusual for us to tow 2 to 3. Our officers, and this is the key part about this, yes, we've reduced crime, but we've increased their contact with our residents. It's not unusual to see them at a Learn to Fish program. It's not unusual to see them at a Learn to Golf program. It's not unusual to see them in a neighborhood event. Chris Szorek, who was here earlier, I drove through a neighborhood one winter day, and he was making a snowman with several kids. Those things are important. They make these officers fabrics of our community. They make our residents want to call them to solve their problem. And I hear this all the time, and it's probably the most important words that I think that they use. Their job is to protect and serve, and that's what they do. They do an excellent job in our neighborhood. We have communication with them. I've gotten calls from Tom at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell me about a particular problem, but those things are important. Problems do not fester in our neighborhoods. We solve them right away. Does that mean we still don't have problems? Oh no, we still have problems. Just like every neighborhood. We have problems with drugs, we have problems occasionally with violence, but we have a handle on those things nowadays, and our neighborhoods are amongst the safest in the city of Erie. And again, you know, I thank the mayor, I thank Chief Spizzarni, certainly I thank the Quebec officers, Tammy Johnson, and adult and juvenile probation. Oh, Chris Cesaric is behind me, actually. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Chief Spizzarni.
Thanks, Mike. You said a lot of what I wanted to say here myself, but truly the partnership is fantastic. The officers that are assigned to this unit are the models of community policing that we hold the whole department to move towards that direction. In 1997, when we began working together with the Housing Authority properties, within 5 years, in 2002, the crime rate had dropped nearly 50% in the housing complexes. As Mike just said, right now the housing projects are some of our safest areas in the entire city because of the partnership. The Quebec guys, and Quebec is our radio call sign. They're the Q car. Phonetically, they're called Quebec. A lot of people have asked about that. So they worked hard to reduce the crime and build the better relationships. The 6 officers assigned to 2 shifts learn the residents' names as they conduct their patrols. They attend many trainings and programs sponsored both by the police department and the housing authority. Working collaboratively with the authority director, the managers, they concentrate on making the neighborhood safe and secure for all the residents. Officers have attended numerous functions with the residents, such as Learn to Fish, Learn to Golf, Senior Bingo, the annual Summer Family Picnic, the Children's Christmas Party. They assist with a bike rodeo where officers provide helmets to children and teach them bike safety tips. All of this is done to give the children and the residents a positive experience with the police. Officers participate in these functions while still policing and enforcing the laws to keep the residents safe. Continuing this partnership by extending the contract is extremely important to the Housing Authority, to the City of Erie, and to the Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike, Chief Dan, Sergeant Gavato, and everyone that's here. We really appreciate the work you're doing, and it's obviously very successful. The purpose of this unit was to break the stereotypical model and encourage officers to be more community-based. The community-oriented police and probation service model breaks down the barriers between the police and the public. It provides the opportunity for police and residents to work hand in hand, making their neighborhoods safer. This has a wonderful impact on the Erie Housing Authority communities as residents and police have developed a relationship that's built on trust and respect. My goal for all 173 Erie police officers is to establish the same kind of relationship with their neighborhoods, where they patrol, and the people that they interact with. This brings me to the important next topic, which is the census. Without an accurate census count, the type of funding you just heard about to organizations like the Erie Housing Authority will be greatly reduced. The U.S. Census Bureau will wrap up all census operations on September 30th, a month earlier than originally planned. The City of Erie currently has about 75% response rate in the census. That means that about 25% of city residents have not completed the census yet. This low response rate will reduce the community development block grants, which is money that our local agencies, nonprofits, and community centers need to help Erie residents. The vast majority of this funding gets deployed within our urban core. Census counts will impact the funding received by Erie Public Schools as well. This census also impacts our representation in Congress and our electoral college votes, which you'll remember that's how the President of the United States is elected. On the screen, you can see the latest map that shows the self-response rate by census tract. We've reviewed the data and identified the lowest responding neighborhoods as of 8/31. Census takers have been deployed in these neighborhoods and go door to door, but residents still can self-respond. Census takers will come to each non-responsive household as many as 6 times. I cannot stress this enough. The more people who don't report, the more devastating it will be to our community. As of right now, Erie would lose over $52 million in federal funding every year for the next 10 years. That's because for every person who does not complete the census, we lose $2,100 per year, every year, for the next 10 years. Completing the census is easy. There's only 9 questions. It takes less than 10 minutes, and your personal information is kept strictly confidential for at least 72 years. To further incentivize you to complete the census, my staff, led by Renee Lamus, has put together a citywide contest. Once you've completed the census, City of Erie residents can go to censuserie.com, where they can enter the contest to win in 2 different ways. First, there will be weekly drawings for $100 in gift cards to local restaurants and businesses every week for the next 6 weeks. Then, in October, after the census ends, there will be a grand prize drawing for $1,000 in cash. Once again, to enter the contest, once you've done the census, go to censuserie.com. Completing the census is the most important thing you can do to increase Erie's federal funding for the next 10 years, and it takes less than 10 minutes to do. Please, complete the census and encourage everyone you know to take the census by going to 2020census.gov. Next, as you know, if I accomplish nothing else as mayor, I want to eliminate racism and prejudice in Erie so that every person in Erie feels valued for their unique talents and skills. After taking office, my team and I created several councils to advise us on policies and initiatives to realize our vision of Erie as a city that celebrates rich cultural diversity. In addition to the Mayor's Roundtable on Disabilities, we created the Mayor's Business Council, the Labor Roundtable, the Strengthening Police Community Partnerships Council, the Mayor's LGBTQ+ Advisory Council, the New American Council, and the Better Together Council. We also have been meeting regularly with the United Clergy of Erie. That's right, isn't it, Bishop Brock? We are meeting. In January of 2020, when we unveiled the Activating Our Vision plan, we outlined several goals related to diversifying our workforce so that it more closely resembles the community that we serve, increases diversity representation on authorities, boards, and commissions, and implementing initiatives to foster equity and inclusion. We have also been working with Welcoming America on the Certified Welcoming Program with the goal of creating an inclusive community that makes everyone feel like they belong here. Our next step is to move forward, is to hire a consultant with extensive experience in helping governments to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. The consultant will work with department heads and key staff to analyze existing systems, policies, programs, and processes within City of Erie government. We will be working in tandem with our advisory councils, key community stakeholders, community leaders to guide the process and to share input. This engagement will reflect government's leadership and equitability access standards, which are set by Welcoming America, as well as initiatives and policies outlined by the Human Rights Campaign's Municipal Equality Index. We anticipate a final plan that would include actionable recommendations and how to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion within the City of Erie based on best practices used in other cities. The RFP is on the City of Erie's website in the news box, which is located at the bottom of the homepage. The deadline for applications is September 21st. Next, I'd like to introduce Michael Outlaw to give you a little more detail about the DEI planning that we're doing. Michael.
Good morning, everyone. Since the mayor took office in 2018, he had a clear vision, a vision to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. He states and continues to state that if he does nothing else, he wants to end racism. For some, that sounds like an unrealistic goal. However, when you understand the structural, institutional, interpersonal, and individual framework of racism, you realize the mayor's goal can and will be achieved. Before I go into the scope of the DEI consultant project, allow me to thank Sarah Friedman, who assisted with the language, Court Gold from the Erie Community Foundation, and the mayor's cabinet for assisting with the language of the DEI RFP. The scope of the project consists of, like the mayor spoke about, a report that outlines the final scope of the work that the consultant will provide to the city of Erie. The consultant will assess the different departments, again, the structural, institutional, interpersonal, and individual, to really delve deeper into what is diversity, equity, and inclusion, how we can create a plan that will make the city of Erie, city government more inclusive. The next task is to analyze policies and systems. The consultant will analyze both citywide and department-focused policies, beginning with HR, on their internal and external affairs, with the focus again on DEI. The consultant will also examine the roles and actions of city officials, including but not limited to the activities and involvement in the community. The consultant will draft a report that provides chapters to the steering committee for an opportunity to provide comments, directions, insights, or proposed changes. The consultant will incorporate any feedback received from the city into the report prior to issuing the city a final report. The final report will include the following: 1, the scope of the study; 2, assumptions and limiting conditions; 3, description of the current city controller, code enforcement, finance, human resources, public safety, which includes fire and police, public works, solicitor, traffic engineering, and individual systems in regards to policies and regulations on DEI. Suggestions for improvements on policy practices, investments, plans, procedures as a means to increase diversity and inclusion within the city government. Other considerations, conclusion, and next steps. So again, this is another landmark for the mayor's administration to fulfill his vision of ending racism in the city of Erie, Pennsylvania. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. I really appreciate your leadership in eliminating racism here in Erie and making every Erie resident feel welcome and valued. Now we move to the last item on our agenda, which is we've had a great meeting, a lot of really good information, and this is a great way to end it. The last LRTA report that we gave was almost 2 months ago. It was back on July 9th. At that time, we had about 180 LRTA applications with a total value of just over $56 million. That's from July 3rd of last year when the new LRTA was implemented. I'm happy to report to you today, in fact, I'm kind of ecstatic to report to you today, that as of yesterday, we have 196 LRTA applications totaling $67,738,121. So in the last 8 weeks now, we're up 18 new applications, and we're up $11,686,634. This is tremendous news for the future of Erie. I want to give a special thanks to John Persinger and his EDDC team of Nicole Reitzel and Matt Wachter for the 2 of the projects of the 18 I just reported were our EDDC projects that totaled $10,762,000. They're investments right here in downtown Erie, one at 510 State Street and the other one on North Park Road. So now I'd like to invite John Persinger to the podium to give an update on the work, the great work that EDC is doing in downtown Erie. John.
Thanks, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to announce that this week we submitted LRTA applications for 2 projects on North Park Row. The applications total close to $11 million. This is just the start of the more than $100 million that the EDDC is going to invest in downtown Erie over the next 3 years. And while there's a lot of talk and focus on the actual numbers, what I wanted to highlight today is the impact that that is having in the community. When these projects are done, we're going to have a new food hall, Erie's first food hall, which will have 9 diverse vendors, 9 new businesses. We'll have a new public market in downtown. We'll have 28 new market rate residential units in downtown. Right now, we have 60 construction workers down there right now. That's going to ramp up as we ramp up construction over the next several months. And when these buildings are finished across these 3 properties and these 3 blocks in downtown, there's going to be several hundred new jobs. Those are jobs for Erie residents who are sending their kids to Erie public schools, Erie residents who are buying properties and paying tax dollars, Erie residents who are shopping in our great businesses. So these are having a transformational effect, and as I've gone across the country, I've had a great opportunity and been blessed to be able to share the Erie story with a number of different leaders across the country, other community news outlets, and there's a lot of interest in how this is all working. I tell them, first, this couldn't be possible without our board, the EDDC board, committing nearly $30 million to invest in downtown. And second, these projects are very financially challenging, and they wouldn't be possible without the great public and private sector collaboration. So I thank Mayor Schember and Erie City Council. I want to thank the school board and Brian Polito as well. I'd also like to thank the county executive and county council for passing LRTA. And I want to thank our other state and federal elected officials as well, because as I've told these other communities, this is, I think, a long time. Everyone would acknowledge that this is a long time coming in Erie, but we've got all the momentum right now to have transformation because we're working together. So thank you very much, and thank you for having me. And before we go, I may actually make one shameless plug, Mayor, if that's okay. I hope that maybe next year we can have one of the mayor's weekly press conferences in the flagship city food hall. You got it. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, very much for what you're doing. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to doing a press conference in the food hall. In fact, I actually look forward next year to a lot of days I see myself walking across Perry Square to get lunch down there. I encourage every resident, if you haven't been downtown for a while, take a drive down, maybe pick up an ice cream cone on the way, but see what the EDC is doing to really transform our downtown here in Erie. I also know that there are other large commercial projects taking place in Erie that have not yet filed LRTA forms. So I look forward to reporting more projects, more new projects, including new ones by the EDDC in future press conferences. And that concludes today's press conference. Everyone who spoke is now available for interviews. Thanks very much.